Gang attacks pregnant black woman. Unaware husband is a Delta Force commander. Tasha Carter had just left her prenatal appointment, and the spring air felt fresh on her skin as she walked down the street. Her steps were slow and deliberate, the growing weight of her pregnancy making each step a bit more effortful. But she didn't mind. It was all part of the beautiful journey she was on. Her due date was just a few weeks away, and every time she felt the baby kick inside her, she smiled to herself. It was a reminder of the new life she was about to bring into the world. Tasha lived in a bustling city, one filled with the constant hum of traffic, the chatter of busy pedestrians, and the occasional sound of distant sirens. It wasn't the safest part of town, but Tasha had grown accustomed to the noise. She walked these streets countless times, usually with her husband, Marcus, at her side. But today he was busy with work, so she was on her own. They lived in a small apartment a few blocks away, in a neighborhood where families, professionals, and local shopkeepers all lived side by side. Despite the occasional trouble in the area, Tasha had always felt safe, especially with Marcus looking out for her. But that afternoon, things were different. Tasha glanced at her watch. She was running a little late. The thought of heading home to relax for a bit was a comfort. As she walked along the sidewalk, passing by local shops and restaurants, her mind began to wander. She thought about Marcus, her rock. He was in the military, serving as a Delta Force commander. His job was intense, and there were times when he had to leave for missions that took him far away. But when he was home, Tasha felt safe. She trusted him with everything in her life, including the life growing inside her. She was so lost in thought that she didn't notice the group of men standing on the corner until she was almost right in front of them. They were loud and rowdy, their laughter echoing across the street. Tasha instinctively quickened her pace, but just as she passed them, one of the men called out, "Hey, sweet thing, where you going? You looking for some fun?" Tasha's heart skipped a beat. She didn't want any trouble, so she kept her head down and kept walking, hoping they would lose interest. But one of them, the largest of the group, stepped forward and blocked her path. "Where you think you're going? Ain't no need to rush, girl. We're just trying to have a little chat." Tasha's stomach tightened. She could feel the tension in the air. The man's eyes were dark and his smile wasn't friendly, it was predatory. He smelled of alcohol and smoke, and the other men in the group laughed as if they were enjoying her discomfort. I'm just trying to get home," she said, her voice wavering slightly, but she tried to sound confident. The man didn't move. "Home. Girl, you're a long way from home now. How about we take a walk together?" Tasha's heart raced. She knew that the group of men was trouble, but she didn't want to escalate the situation. She took a step back, trying to move around him. But before she could, another man, smaller but quicker, grabbed her arm. "Where you think you're going, huh? You don't get to just walk away from us." Tasha jerked her arm back, but his grip was strong, and the other men started laughing louder, egging him on. Panic began to rise in her chest. She could feel her breath quicken as fear set in. These men didn't just want to talk, they wanted something else. She tried to pull away again, but the man held her tighter, pulling her closer. "Let go of me," Tasha shouted, but her voice was drowned out by their laughter. The large man stepped closer, his hand reaching for her purse. "Come on, girl, give it to me, you don't need this anyway." Tasha fought back, pushing against the man's chest. "No, leave me alone." Her mind raced, trying to think of an escape. She couldn't scream loud enough to attract attention. She had no weapon to defend herself, and as much as she wanted to believe she could handle it on her own, she knew she was outnumbered. This wasn't a situation where she could walk away easily. Suddenly, she felt a sharp tug as the man tried to snatch her purse from her. As she struggled, her phone slipped from her pocket, landing on the ground with a soft thud. It was a moment of weakness, just enough time for the gang members to close in. "Please," she begged, her voice trembling now, "just take it, take whatever you want." But the man wasn't done yet. He reached for her again, pushing her up against the wall with force. "It's not just your purse I want, girl, it's you." Tasha's pulse hammered in her ears. Her pregnancy made her feel even more vulnerable. The last thing she wanted was for something to happen to her baby. She couldn't let these men hurt her or her unborn child. The group of men closed in, and she felt her chest tighten with fear. The leader of the group, Dante, raised his hand, and the others fell silent. His smile was cold and calculating as he stepped forward. "Don't worry, sweetheart," Dante said, his voice low and menacing. "We'll take care of you." Tasha closed her eyes for a brief moment, praying for some kind of miracle, but she didn't know if one was coming. Her thoughts drifted to Marcus, her husband. He was her protector, her shield, but right now he wasn't there. She was alone. But what Tasha didn't know was that Marcus was never too far away. Tasha felt the grip on her arm tighten as the men closed in around her. Fear washed over her, making her heart pound in her chest. She knew she had to stay calm, but it was hard when everything inside her screamed for her to run, to escape. But she was trapped. The city street was quieter than it should have been, and she couldn't help but notice that the usual flow of pedestrians seemed to have vanished. Maybe they sensed something was wrong too. Dante, the leader of the group, stepped closer, his eyes narrowing with amusement as he studied her. The other men hovered nearby, waiting for him to take the lead. Tasha tried to take a step back, but the wall behind her stopped her. Her eyes darted to her phone, now lying on the ground just a few feet away. Her heart sank as she realized it was too far for her to reach. The gang had blocked her off from the one thing that could have saved her. "Look at you all alone," Dante taunted, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Thought you'd be safe walking around here, huh?" Tasha swallowed hard. She wasn't sure what they wanted, her purse, her phone, or something worse. But she knew she had to get out of there. She could feel the weight of her pregnancy, her body slowing her down, and the thought made her stomach twist in knots. She needed to get home to Marcus. "Please," she said, trying to keep the desperation from her voice. "Just take whatever you want and leave me alone." Dante gave her a cold smile as if he found her fear amusing. "Take whatever we want," he repeated mockingly. "That's the plan, sweetheart." One of the men in the group laughed, a high-pitched sound that sent a shiver down her spine. Tasha felt the heat rising in her face as embarrassment mixed with her fear. She didn't want to be there in that moment, vulnerable and exposed. But there was little she could do. Her mind raced, trying to think of any way to get out of this situation. She was alone, unarmed, and pregnant. No matter how much she wished it, there was no easy way out. Suddenly, one of the men reached for her purse again, yanking it from her side. Tasha resisted, instinctively clutching it tighter, but he was stronger. With a sharp tug, he tore it away from her grasp, and she was left standing there, defenseless. Her thoughts flickered to Marcus, and she prayed that somehow he'd find her. But right now, her reality was this: alone and vulnerable, surrounded by men who had no intention of letting her go. "Hey, girl, you might want to start listening," Dante said, his voice low and commanding. "You're in our world now, you'll do what we say." Tasha's breath hitched. She had to do something. She couldn't just stand there and let these men take control of her life. She had a child to protect. The thought of her baby, growing inside her, made her hands tremble with an urge to fight back. But her body was tired, her legs heavy from the weight of her pregnancy, and she felt her strength fading. Just as she was about to speak again, a sudden sound caught her attention, a soft vibration against her chest. It was her phone slipping out of her bag unnoticed by the men. They were so caught up in tormenting her that they hadn't seen it fall. Tasha's heart skipped a beat. The phone, it was her lifeline. It wasn't much, but it was something. Her mind raced, calculating the best way to grab it without alerting the men. If she could just send a message, or if Marcus saw her location, he'd know something was wrong. But as she glanced at the phone, she saw Dante glance over at it, noticing the screen lit up with a notification. "Is that your husband?" Dante asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Tasha froze, her pulse raced as she tried to mask her fear. "No," she said quickly. "It's just a notification." But Dante wasn't fooled. He took a step toward her phone, his hand outstretched. Tasha's heart pounded in her ears. If he saw Marcus's name, the game was over. She couldn't let him know anything about Marcus. He wasn't just any man. Marcus was a commander in Delta Force, and he had the skills and resources to find her. But if the gang knew who he really was, they might escalate things even further. "Don't," Tasha said, trying to keep her voice steady, but it came out shaky. "Please don't look at my phone." Dante raised an eyebrow, clearly amused by her attempt to regain some control. But he didn't listen. Instead, he picked up the phone, holding it in front of her face, his eyes scanning the screen. Tasha's stomach churned, her mind racing for a way to fix this. She couldn't let him see Marcus's contact. If Dante found out who her husband really was, the situation could get even worse. Suddenly, there was a shift. The phone buzzed once more, but this time it wasn't just a regular notification. It was a location alert, one that Marcus had set up. The red dot, flashing on the screen, marked Tasha's exact position. "Interesting," Dante said, his voice now full of suspicion. Your husband knows exactly where you are, huh? He must really care about you. Tasha's heart skipped a beat. Marcus always had her back, always made sure she was safe. But now, the very thing that made her feel safe could put them both in danger. She had no idea what these men would do if they found out just who Marcus really was. They didn't know that her husband wasn't just an ordinary man. They didn't know that Marcus was a skilled, highly trained soldier who would stop at nothing to protect her. In that moment, Tasha felt both a sense of helplessness and hope. Marcus would come, he would find her. She didn't know how or when, but she knew he would. His training, his instincts, his love for her, everything he was, everything he stood for, he would come for her. And with him, hope wasn't lost. But right now, she was still alone with these men. Dante's grip on her phone tightened, and Tasha knew she had to act fast. Every second that passed was another moment that they could get closer to finding out who Marcus really was. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, Tasha made a decision. She wasn't going to wait around anymore. She couldn't. If she had to face these men, she would do it. But not without a fight. As Tasha stood there, trapped and helpless, she couldn't stop the rush of thoughts flooding her mind. The phone in Dante's hand, her last hope for reaching Marcus, now felt like a ticking clock. The realization that time was running out made her stomach twist. She had no idea how long it would take Marcus to realize something was wrong, or how quickly he could get to her. The gang was closing in on her, their mockery growing louder, and she knew that every moment was precious. "Your husband sure loves you, huh?" Dante said, his voice tinged with amusement as he glanced at the phone's screen. "Too bad he's not here to save you." Tasha's heart raced as she struggled to remain composed. She wanted to scream, to shout for help, but she knew it wouldn't work. Her voice would be lost in the chaos of the street, and the men would just laugh at her more. All she could do now was wait, hoping against hope that Marcus would see the signal in time. But she couldn't keep relying on that hope alone. She had to take action. Marcus, thousands of miles away in another part of the city, had no idea that his wife was in danger. His day had started like any other. He had woken up early to go through the mission briefing, preparing for a special operation. His job as a Delta Force commander was demanding, and he was used to operating in high-stress situations. But today, something felt different. He couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The gnawing feeling in his gut wouldn't go away. As he sat in the briefing room, Marcus's eyes kept flicking to his phone. The device vibrated in his pocket, a soft, buzzing sound that he immediately recognized. It was a notification from the tracking app he had installed on Tasha's phone. His heart skipped a beat as he checked the screen. Tasha's location. The map on the phone blinked, showing her in an area he knew wasn't safe. It wasn't the first time she had been in this part of the city, but the fact that she was alone, walking through the streets without him, sent a chill down his spine. He immediately stood up, excusing himself from the meeting. His colleagues, used to his sudden bursts of focus and determination, didn't question him. They knew when Marcus was serious, and right now, he was more serious than ever. As he pulled on his jacket and grabbed his gear, Marcus didn't waste time thinking about the why or how of the situation. The moment he saw Tasha's location, he knew one thing for sure: something was wrong. He didn't care if it was a false alarm or a glitch in the app. All that mattered was getting to her, and fast. His military training kicked in. He moved with precision, gathering everything he needed for a rescue operation. The adrenaline coursed through his veins, sharpening his mind and focusing his actions. He didn't have time for questions or doubts. He had to reach her before it was too late. Marcus's fingers flew over his phone, sending out a quick message to his team. "Activate immediate response. Stand by for orders." His voice was calm, but his mind was a storm of thoughts. He had no idea how much time they had, but he knew he couldn't wait for backup to arrive. If Tasha was in danger, he needed to act now. He didn't have time to waste. The streets between him and Tasha seemed to stretch farther the more he thought about it. He didn't know exactly what was happening to her, but he could guess. He'd seen enough in his years of service to know that there were many dangers lurking in dark corners of the city. He could only hope that his training, his experience, and his instincts would guide him to her in time. As Marcus navigated through the city, weaving through traffic and dodging obstacles, his thoughts kept returning to Tasha. He thought of her warmth, her laughter, the way she'd smile when she saw him after a long mission. He thought of the baby she carried, the child he'd promised to protect no matter what. He had to save them both. His mind wouldn't rest until he had them safe in his arms. Back on the street, Tasha felt the cold grip of fear tighten around her chest. The gang members were still circling her, taunting her with cruel words and leering smiles. Dante had put her phone down for a moment, but the moment he picked it up again, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe Marcus was getting the alert. Maybe he had seen the location. Maybe he was already on his way. She tried to steady her breathing, but it was hard. The air around her felt thick, suffocating. The noise of the city seemed distant, and all she could hear was the pounding of her own heart. She could feel the baby moving inside her, as if it too sensed the danger. The bond she shared with this child made her feel even more protective, more determined to survive. She couldn't let anything happen to her baby. Her thoughts were interrupted when Dante suddenly turned and barked out an order to the others. "Move her! We're not sticking around here. We've got what we came for." Tasha's eyes widened as she realized what he meant. They weren't just going to steal her purse or her phone. They were going to take her. She wasn't just a victim in a robbery anymore. She was being taken, dragged into a world she didn't belong to. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. She wasn't just fighting for her possessions. She was fighting for her life, for the life of her unborn child. The men began to move toward her, their hands reaching for her arms. Tasha struggled, her legs feeling weak, but her will was strong. She wasn't going to let them take her without a fight. With a burst of strength, she kicked one of the men in the shins, causing him to stumble back. He swore under his breath, but the other men only laughed. Dante stepped forward again, his expression darkening. "That was a mistake," he said coldly, his eyes narrowing. Tasha's heart raced. She had to think quickly. She could feel the tears stinging in her eyes, but she refused to cry. She wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing her fear. Instead, she looked around, desperate for something, anything, that could help her escape. But the street was deserted and the world around her felt like it was closing in. And then, just as things seemed to be at their worst, she heard it, a distant sound, faint but unmistakable. It was the sound of a car engine revving, the hum of a vehicle speeding toward her. It was Marcus. Tasha's heart beat in her chest as the gang members closed in, each step they took toward her feeling like an eternity. She could see the darkness in their eyes, the cruel amusement in their grins. She knew deep down that they didn't care about her, about anything except getting what they wanted. And right now, it seemed like they wanted more than just her purse. They wanted control over her life. Dante, the leader, stepped closer, his eyes scanning her face as though he was trying to figure out just how much fear he could get out of her. His smile was chilling, and Tasha couldn't stop the rush of panic that flooded her veins. She needed to hold it together. She couldn't let him see how scared she really was. The baby inside her seemed to sense the urgency too, kicking against her, reminding her that she wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for her unborn child. "Move," Dante barked, and the men shifted, making their move to drag her toward a nearby alley where no one could see them. Tasha's mind raced, her thoughts scrambling for any possible escape, but the gang was too close. She couldn't outrun them, not with the weight of her pregnancy slowing her down. And even if she could, where would she go? The streets were empty and the city was dark, a shadow of the place she once felt safe in. She could feel her throat tightening with fear, but then, like a flicker of hope, a thought came to her. Marcus, he would come for her, he would find her. She held onto that thought like a lifeline, but with each second that passed, she felt the darkness of the situation closing in around her. They were dragging her closer and closer to the alley, and the more they moved her, the more she felt her chance of escape slipping away. Just when she thought she couldn't bear it any longer, she heard the roar of an engine in the distance. It was faint at first, barely audible over the noise of the city, but as it grew louder, Tasha's heart skipped a beat. She knew that sound. She knew it well. It was Marcus. The sound of his car grew louder as it approached, the powerful engine growling as it cut through the stillness of the night. It was like the sound of a storm, a force of nature, and Tasha could feel the weight of it in her bones. She could feel it in the air around her, a force that was coming for her, coming to save her. Dante heard the sound too. His head whipped around, a look of confusion crossing his face for a moment. "What the hell is that?" he muttered under his breath. Tasha didn't need to hear the words. She could feel the change in the air. The tension shifted. The gang's focus broke just for a moment as they realized they weren't alone. It was a brief moment of distraction, but it was all Tasha needed. She used the opening to take a deep breath, a surge of adrenaline rushing through her. She knew this was her chance. She had to do something, anything. With all the strength she could muster, she swung her elbow back, catching one of the men behind her in the ribs. He grunted in pain, stumbling back, and she felt a flicker of hope rise in her chest. She wasn't done. She wasn't going down without a fight, but Dante recovered quickly and the distraction was short-lived. He glared at her with fury in his eyes. "You want to play this game?" "Fine." He lunged toward her, grabbing her by the arm and jerking her forward, dragging her toward the alley. Tasha's thoughts were spinning, but the sound of the engine was still there, growing louder. It was getting closer. She could feel it in the pit of her stomach. The man driving that car wasn't just any man. Marcus wasn't just a regular person. He was a trained professional, and he knew how to handle himself in situations like this. He would come for her. And just as she thought the worst was about to happen, the car screeched to a halt right next to the group. The screeching tires sounded like a scream in the night, a warning to the gang that their time was up. The headlights from the car flooded the alley, casting long shadows and illuminating the faces of the men who had been tormenting her. Tasha's heart pounded in her chest, the fear giving way to something else, something stronger. Hope. It was real. Marcus was here. The door of the car slammed open, and out stepped Marcus, moving with the quiet, controlled confidence of someone who knew exactly what to do. He didn't hesitate. He didn't waste time. Every movement was calculated, precise. His military training kicked in as he sized up the situation in an instant. The gang members, now realizing they were no longer in control, froze. Dante's eyes widened as he saw Marcus's stance, the way he moved with purpose. There was no doubt about it. Marcus was no ordinary man. He was someone who knew how to handle danger. "Let her go," Marcus's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. There was no room for negotiation, no question in his tone. It was an order, and the gang knew it. For a moment there was silence. The men, unsure of what to do, hesitated. Dante, who had been the one to threaten Tasha moments before, took a step back, sizing up Marcus. He had never seen anyone like him before. There was an aura about Marcus. Something that made Dante pause, made him rethink his next move. But Marcus wasn't waiting for Dante to make a decision. In one fluid motion, he closed the gap between them, stepping forward with the speed and precision of someone trained to fight. His movements were like lightning, quick, decisive, and powerful. Before Dante could react, Marcus had already disarmed him, grabbing his arm and twisting it behind his back. The knife Dante had been holding fell to the ground with a loud clatter, and Dante gasped, unable to move. The rest of the gang started backing away, realizing they were outmatched. One by one, they turned and ran, vanishing into the shadows of the city. They had seen enough. They knew they were in over their heads. Marcus didn't take his eyes off Dante. "You're done," he said coldly, his voice unwavering. "You've got nothing left." As the last of the gang disappeared, Marcus turned to Tasha, his eyes softening for the first time since he had arrived. She was shaking, her breath coming in quick, shallow gasps, but she was unharmed. "Hey," Marcus said gently, stepping forward and wrapping his arms around her. "It's okay now, you're safe." Tasha felt herself collapse against him, her body finally giving way to the exhaustion and relief that flooded her all at once. She could feel the baby kicking inside her, as if it too was relieved to know they were safe. "I knew you'd come," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I knew you'd find me." Marcus kissed the top of her head, holding her tighter. "Always, I'll always find you." Angela was trembling, her hands shaking as she sat on the steps outside their house. The evening had started like any other, quiet, peaceful, and calm, but it had ended in chaos. Just moments ago, a group of gang members had attacked her, thinking she was an easy target. They had tried to take her purse and phone, and even though she had screamed and fought back, she had felt completely powerless. But then, out of nowhere, Marcus had appeared. Her husband, the man she had shared her life with for years, had moved with a speed, skill, and calm that seemed almost unreal. Angela's mind was racing. She could still feel the terror in her chest, the sudden rush of adrenaline, and the overwhelming fear for her unborn baby. She had always known Marcus was strong, disciplined, and brave, but she had never imagined him in action like this. The man she knew as her loving, gentle husband had transformed into a figure of power and precision, someone completely capable of defending her from danger. As the police arrived and began taking statements from neighbors who had witnessed the confrontation, Angela tried to process everything. The gang members were now handcuffed and surrounded by officers. They were confused and shaken, looking completely different from the threatening figures that had cornered her just minutes earlier. Seeing them subdued, Angela felt a strange mix of relief and disbelief. Relief that she was safe, and disbelief at the intensity of the events she had just survived. Marcus came to her side, kneeling gently to take her hands in his. His face was calm, but Angela could see the tiny tremor of concern in his eyes. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, his voice low and steady. It was the voice that always made her feel safe, but tonight it carried a weight that made her heart ache. Angela nodded, but words didn't come. Her mind was still spinning with the memory of their faces, the fear she had felt, and the sudden realization of just how much danger she had been in. Marcus, noticing her silence, squeezed her hands reassuringly. "It's okay. You're safe now. I've got you, I promise." She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in a long while. There was a quiet pride in his eyes, a mixture of relief, responsibility, and love. She had always admired him, but now she felt something deeper, a profound respect for the man who had kept his true skills hidden until the moment they were needed most. As neighbors approached, asking if they were all right, Angela felt a wave of gratitude for the community around her. People had gathered, some bringing blankets, some just standing silently to show support. She realized that despite the fear and violence that had intruded on her evening, there was kindness, care, and solidarity all around. The presence of these people, along with Marcus's unwavering protection, made her feel grounded and safe again. Marcus gently guided her inside the house once the police had completed their initial investigation. He checked every room, ensuring that nothing else could threaten them. His movements were calm but deliberate, every action reflecting years of training and experience. Angela watched him, fascinated by the quiet confidence he exuded. She realized that his life had always included hidden layers, discipline, skill, and preparation that she hadn't fully understood until now. Once inside, Marcus helped her sit comfortably on the couch and brought her a glass of water. "You need to relax," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You've been through a lot, and your body and the baby need calm and rest." Angela sipped the water, feeling its coolness soothe her nerves. She could hear the faint sirens of the police car leaving, and for the first time since the attack began, she allowed herself to breathe fully. Her thoughts drifted to the baby, safe inside her womb, and she felt a protective wave of love stronger than anything she had ever felt before. The fear of the earlier attack mingled with a deep appreciation for the man sitting beside her. Marcus had faced danger without hesitation, putting her safety above everything else. The thought of what could have happened if he hadn't been there made her shiver, but the thought of his courage and readiness made her heart swell with gratitude. Marcus sat quietly beside her, his hand resting on hers. He didn't need to say much, his presence alone was enough. Angela found herself telling him everything she had felt during the attack. The fear, the panic, the feeling of helplessness, and then the relief and astonishment at seeing him intervene. Marcus listened intently, nodding occasionally, his expression calm but full of understanding. "You were so brave," he said finally. "You did exactly what you needed to do. You stayed calm and protected yourself." "That takes courage, Angela." His words were simple, but they carried a weight that made her feel seen and appreciated. For years, she had thought of bravery in terms of physical action, but now she realized that her own courage had mattered just as much. She had survived, stayed alert, and trusted in the process, and that was bravery too. Hours passed, and the adrenaline slowly left her body, replaced by exhaustion and reflection. Angela realized that the attack had changed her perspective in many ways. She now saw the fragility of life and the importance of being prepared for unexpected dangers. She also understood her husband in a way she hadn't before, not just as a loving partner, but as a man with a depth of skill, experience, and responsibility that he had carried silently for years. The evening drew to a quiet close. The neighborhood had returned to its usual calm, and Angela and Marcus sat together, holding hands and talking in low voices. They discussed how to prevent future threats, how to remain vigilant, and how to appreciate the small moments of peace in life. There was a new bond forming between them, one strengthened not just by love, but by shared experience, respect, and the profound relief of surviving a dangerous encounter together. Finally, as Angela prepared for bed, she looked at Marcus with a mix of love, gratitude, and admiration. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving me, for protecting us." Marcus smiled, brushing his fingers gently across her cheek. "I'll always protect you," he said simply. "No matter what, you and our baby are my world." Angela felt a deep sense of security as she closed her eyes, knowing that they had faced danger together and emerged stronger. The world could be unpredictable and frightening, but in that moment, she understood that courage, preparation, and love could overcome even the most unexpected threats. With Marcus by her side and their baby safe, she finally allowed herself to rest, grateful for life, love, and the extraordinary courage that had kept her safe. The days that followed the attack were filled with a mixture of relief, reflection, and quiet gratitude. Angela and Marcus tried to return to their normal lives, but the events of that night had left a permanent mark on both of them. Every small sound outside their home made Angela pause, every unfamiliar face made her heart race for a moment. But these fears were tempered by a deep sense of safety, knowing that Marcus would always be there to protect her and their unborn child. Angela spent a lot of time sitting by the window, watching the neighborhood return to its peaceful rhythm. Children played on the sidewalks, neighbors walked their dogs, and the hum of ordinary life continued as if nothing had happened. Yet, for Angela, everything had changed. She now saw the fragility of life in a new light. The night of the attack had reminded her that danger could appear without warning, and the value of courage, preparation, and awareness was something she would never take for granted again. Marcus returned to his routine as well, balancing his duties as a Delta Force commander with his responsibilities at home. But he noticed a subtle change in Angela. She was more thoughtful, more cautious, and yet stronger in ways he hadn't expected. He admired her resilience, her ability to face fear and keep moving forward despite everything. In their conversations, they often revisited that night, not to dwell on the terror, but to understand what they had learned from it and how they could grow from it together. One afternoon, Angela went for a slow walk around the block, carefully watching her surroundings. Marcus accompanied her, his presence a quiet reassurance. The sun was warm and the sky was a clear blue, but Angela still felt a cautious awareness in the back of her mind. She realized that the attack had given her more than fear, it had given her perspective. Life was fragile, yes, but it was also precious, and moments of peace and joy should be cherished even more. As her due date approached, Angela and Marcus spent a lot of time preparing for the baby's arrival. The nursery was painted in soft, comforting colors, with shelves full of toys, blankets, and books. Every detail had been planned carefully, reflecting their love and hopes for their child. Marcus would often sit in the rocking chair, imagining the day he would hold his baby for the first time. He thought about the world outside, the dangers it could bring, and how he would protect this new life with the same vigilance he had shown for Angela. Angela sometimes found herself reflecting on the evening of the attack and what it had revealed about her husband. She realized that Marcus had always carried a weight that she had only glimpsed before. A life of discipline, responsibility, and courage, hidden behind the calm exterior she knew so well. She admired him deeply, not just for his actions that night, but for the man he was every day. He was someone who prepared, who planned, who loved fiercely, and who could step into danger without hesitation. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Angela placed her hand on her growing belly. "I think our baby already has a hero," she said softly, smiling at Marcus. He laughed, brushing his fingers gently over her hand. "No," he said, "our baby will grow up with two heroes." "You were incredibly brave, Angela. You stayed strong even when you were scared." Angela looked at him, a mixture of awe and gratitude in her eyes. "I don't feel brave," she said. "I just wanted to survive and make sure we both did." Marcus shook his head. "That's bravery." "Bravery isn't always about fighting. It's about doing the right thing even when you're scared." As the days passed, their story began to spread through the community. Neighbors spoke of the couple with admiration, inspired by the courage, skill, and love that had kept Angela safe. Some shared their own experiences with fear, others offered support, and many simply expressed relief that the family was unharmed. Angela and Marcus were grateful for the outpouring of care, but they remained humble. They didn't see themselves as heroes. They saw themselves as a family who had faced danger together and had emerged stronger. The night before Angela's labor, the couple sat quietly in the nursery. The room was soft and warm, filled with gentle light from a small lamp. Marcus held Angela's hand, feeling the baby move gently inside her. "Tomorrow," he whispered, We meet our little one, and no matter what happens in the world, we face it together." Angela nodded, her heart full of hope and love. She felt a calm she hadn't experienced since the attack, a quiet confidence that they would handle whatever life brought next. The labor was long but steady. Marcus stayed by Angela's side the entire time, his presence a constant source of strength and reassurance. He guided her through every contraction, whispered words of encouragement, and held her hand with unwavering patience. The memory of that terrifying night lingered in the back of their minds, but it no longer brought fear. It brought a deep appreciation for life, for survival, and for the strength they could draw from each other. Finally, after hours of effort, their baby arrived. The room filled with the soft cries of new life, and Angela and Marcus looked at each other with tears in their eyes. The tiny being in their arms was the embodiment of hope, love, and courage, the new chapter of their lives. Angela held the baby close, feeling a wave of relief and joy wash over her. She thought about the danger she had faced, and she realized that every moment of fear had led to this one, the safe arrival of their child. Marcus gazed at their baby with a mixture of awe and pride. "We did it," he whispered. "We made it." He gently kissed Angela's forehead, silently promising to protect their family no matter what challenges lay ahead. The room was filled with warmth, quiet happiness, and the kind of peace that comes after surviving a storm together. In the following weeks, life settled into a rhythm. Angela recovered, Marcus returned to his work, and their baby became the center of their world. The neighborhood remained safe and calm, but the family carried with them the lessons of that night. They had learned the importance of courage, preparation, love, and trust. Angela felt stronger than ever, Marcus felt more connected to his family, and their bond as a couple deepened beyond measure. One quiet evening, Angela and Marcus sat on their porch, watching the sunset. Their baby slept peacefully inside the house, and the world outside seemed calm and gentle. "It's strange," Angela said softly, "how much can change in one night, but somehow everything turned out okay." Marcus nodded, squeezing her hand. "It did. And it will keep turning out okay because we have each other, and we will face whatever comes next together." Angela smiled, feeling a deep sense of contentment. The attack had tested them, challenged them, and changed them, but it had also revealed the depth of their courage and love. She knew that life could be unpredictable and sometimes frightening, but she also knew that love, preparation, and resilience could overcome the darkest moments. As night fell, they sat together in silence, feeling the quiet strength of family, the safety of home, and the promise of the future. The world outside could be uncertain, but inside they had everything they needed: courage, love, and each other. The experience had left its mark, but it had also given them the greatest gift of all: a renewed appreciation for life, a strong family, and the knowledge that together they could face anything. Angela rested her head on Marcus's shoulder, feeling his heartbeat and the gentle rise and fall of his chest. She thought about the attack, the fear, the courage, and the incredible resilience they had shown. And she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would meet them as a family, with love and bravery guiding their way. The memory of fear had been transformed into a memory of strength, and that strength would carry them forward always.